if somebody has the mindset that they want to eradicate and destroy other people's ideas and they want to get rid of other people who have different ideas from them, I think that's when the problematic stuff comes in, especially if if you go back to your little citation of government economic models, right? If your favorite economic model of how a government and a people should operate, if you think that's right and you think the other one is evil and bad, and all you want to do is perpetuate conversations and materials to disprove, to tear apart, and to destroy anybody ever thinking that ever again because you just think it's so wrong for them to think that, then are you being a good human being by destroying those ideas and those thoughts?
And it comes back to the idea of hubris, doesn't it? Because that is
Hmm.
exactly what you're feeding. You're feeding your own hubris, your own feeling of self-importance, and your own thought process is the correct one. And eventually you get to the point where, of course, it all comes collapsing down on you because you have overreached that because you think you are then invincible. And
Hmm.
the the AI feeds that. It feeds you. It helps you in your own little echo chamber. It allows you to produce vast quantities of material that supports your view.
Hmm.
And then, and the more that you do that, the more entrenched your view becomes, because it's as we know, it's the mirror. It's the mirror that just tells you what you want to hear. And the more questions you ask it,
Yeah. What was the name of that effect you told me about?
oh, it's the Dunning-Kruger
Yeah,
effect.
the Dunning-Kruger effect. That's right, the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yes, and so but basically, for people who don't know that, it's the theory that says the less you know about a subject, the more confident and opinionated you are about it, because you don't know anything about it, but you think you know something about it, and that becomes your fixed view. It's also for people who have very poor skills in a particular area, but think they are brilliant because either nobody's challenged them or for whatever reason. But AI will amplify that because so, for example, if I was asking it to talk to me about a political theory, it's designed to please me. So it will give me all sorts of information about this political theory. I'll then ask it questions, it's feedback to me, blah, 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 blah. And so I think I then become very knowledgeable. And that is my political viewpoint. Okay. So when somebody comes to me and talks about a different political viewpoint, which I've not done any research on or anything or anything at all, um, because I've focused on this, by definition, I will have a probably even more fixed version
Hmm.
about that. I won't want to know anything about it, only that I know that it's bad, terrible, horrible, idiotic, whatever it is. And that's the Dunning-Kruger effect. I don't actually know anything about it. I don't really want to know anything about it because that might affect my worldview.
Hmm.
Therefore, my opinion about that becomes even more fixed than the opinion about my little yellow brick road path that I'm on,
Hmm.
because I can probably wobble a little bit on my view, but that over there, no, I
Hmm.
I know nothing about it. All I know is that it's wrong.
Yeah.
That's the Dunning-Kruger effect down to a T, and that is the one bias. Everybody talks about all sorts of other biases. Nobody really talks about that one because that is the bias that overrides everybody else's bias.
Well, it's fascinating because it's been demonstrated. I think I would claim without evidence to back it up here, but maybe I can go look it up on the internet, that it takes about 10,000 hours to master something.
Yeah.
I think that's the number that usually comes out.
Hmm.
If you look at that, that's like the equivalent of high school,
Yes.
or a 4-year degree in college, and so that's why we put a lot of credence to people with education. They have a degree. They spent 4 years, 10,000 hours. Like a full-time employee. I think here in the U.S. we call that 2,088 hours, if I remember
Mm,
correctly. And so if you went 10,000 hours, that's it's right around 4 years of
mm,
work. A little bit, maybe a little bit more. But within 4 to 5 years of time, spending most of your time doing that thing, you become a master of that. You become
yeah.
an expert at that thing. But if you think about it, if you are masterful at something that is not deeply diverse and it has not explored divergent ideology or ideation, um, then exactly what kind of master are you? So, for example, people have actually presented fake research papers
Mm,
to the academia here in the United States. There's some folks that did an experiment, and I don't know how long they conducted it, but they wrote up papers on some popular things, that people were interested in academia, and they wrote the whole thing up. And these were academics themselves, and so they were able to make it look like something, but they didn't back up any of their data. They didn't, none of the stuff that they were supposed to do on purpose. They just falsified a document, but they made the topic something of interest, and
yes.
they presented it to peers, and it was approved by their peers. So they ended up creating peer approved research that was complete
Mm,
bunk.
mm,
Like they actually got it through the system that everybody thinks is the system. It's like,
yeah.
oh, it's peer reviewed. Oh, well, then you can't question it because now it's good. They literally got through a peer reviewed process and demonstrated absolute bias from the human
Mm,
beings they were, doing these publishing things on. And what they created was complete. They made it up. They didn't do any research. They
yeah.
didn't study
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
They just made it look like a research paper.
Mm,
They put some books to quote from on some stuff, and then just put it out there. And the people who approved it, they approved it by its title and its abstract, and they didn't really read it. They didn't really conduct
mm,
true, genuine research to see whether there was an alternate viewpoint on anything. They just accepted it. And these are academics who accepted it. People with expertise who we're supposed to trust. And that reminds me of another experiment that was conducted. I can't remember what, in the 40s or the 50s or sometime. They did an experiment where they pretended to electrocute people, right? And then so people in lab coats came in, and they sat you down in front of a dial, and there was somebody in another room, and they said, "Here, we want you to turn this dial." And they turned the dial, and somebody in the room screamed,
oh
like,
yeah, I've seen that, or I've heard about
right?
it.
Yeah. And so people would do it, and I think I don't know if there was like something labeled on the dial or something like that, but they made it look as if you could kill somebody with it. Like you're not
Mm,
only electrocuting them, but you're like, you could take it to the point that you've killed them. And not everybody did it, but a lot of people, because somebody in a lab coat told them to do it, thought that they were electrocuting somebody basically to death, like, and they did it because they trusted the person in the lab coat. And it wasn't even like a scientist other than somebody who's doing a social experiment, and then there's other social experiments that we can cite, from other locations and places with kids and people and things, and it's humans are strange animals that will trust something